Welcome to the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs interview series where I'm interviewing folks who are making money online or just the beginnings of their journey and doing all sorts of great stuff as part and parcel of being members of the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs. Today I've got a fantastic interview for you. It's with one of the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs called Geoff Wainright, and Geoff's been with us for I think about 12 months, something like that, and is doing great stuff in his Amazon store, but also, as you'll see, has also been a part of eBay, is also doing his own websites. He's got a lot of really interesting things that he's currently doing and he's done as well. So be sure to stay tuned through everything because you're going to learn all about some of the tools that Geoff uses, as well as you'll hear how Geoff took an investment of $450 and through canny e-commerce skills turn that into $30,000 a month on Amazon. So be sure to stay through to hear everything that Geoff's got to say, and thanks for listening in, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Why don't we kind of start at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey? What were you originally doing way back when? What's your background?
So I was a customs officer from the age of 19. Didn't want to go to university with all my friends. They all went off to university. I decided I wanted to earn some money.
Yeah.
So I got a job as a customs officer because that sounded like an interesting job, working at the airport and working on the waterfront, trying to find drugs and catch bad guys.
Was that in Sydney or?
Yeah. So pretty much I grew up in Sydney, went to school in Sydney, and from 1985 to the year 2000, so for 15 years, I worked in all the areas of the operational part of customs.
Yeah.
And I got promoted up the ranks and really was bored. So by the year 2000, I was sitting in an office with lots of, stripes on my shoulder. But
yeah.
I wasn't doing all the cool, sexy stuff anymore, the stakeouts and searching people's bags and going down to the waterfront and doing all that sort of stuff. I was pretty much a senior officer in the office, and so that's when I decided to move down to Canberra. It was to come to a defence job, but it was a defence job that worked in the export controls area, and it was quite interesting. It was I was in charge of the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act. And I was the lead enforcement officer for defence exports, and so I'd had a few good lurks and perks. I was doing some overseas trips and representing Australia over in different export control seminars in Japan, and got to travel to the US and Paris and London and a few different places around the world. But I think I always had this entrepreneurial streak in me because when you go through airports, you look at the books to read there, and they're often Think and Grow Rich, or they're the first book that really had a big impact on me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Was it really? That's for a lot of folks. What was it about that book that had the impact? What did you get from that? It was really the cash flow. Yeah. The quadrants where you got the four different quadrants. And I think maybe that was the next book after Rich Dad Poor Dad where he talked more. I bought that book, which was the cash flow quadrants, I think it was called. Yes. So I might have even bought both books to read on the plane because I was sort of the whole idea of income and expenses and being able to record all of that really resonated with me because I didn't want to be this sort of person that worked for so many years, but I didn't know where my money was coming and going, and I wanted to be able to build up assets and just the way he described assets and liabilities, and people always thought their family home was an asset, but when you looked at it on the balance sheet, it was actually a liability. Yes. Family home, and that sort of made sense to me that I needed to think of a way to bring more cash flow into my life and build up real assets, not what the bank tells you is an asset. So that's where I really wanted to get into business. I wanted to start
at that point, were you at all disillusioned with having a job, with the career that you had? Were you kind of sitting there thinking to yourself, this kind of sucks?
No, that was the problem. I had a really cool job. I'm traveling around the world. I was doing all this cool stuff in defence. And so I didn't really have my job sucks. I need to get out of this job.
Yeah.
That was the problem. I think that was my big problem. I probably needed a job that sucked for me to get out quicker.
Yes.
But it was so much fun doing all that sort of stuff. And back in those days, so I got promoted up to the executive level. So, I was on a reasonable sort of salary, and, you're getting flying around the world business class and stuff like that. So I did that for 2 years here in Canberra. So by 2002 was when the bug really hit, and that's when I decided I'm going to buy myself a franchise at least to get out and do something different. And that's when I got the cost management franchise, which was a way for me to have a business where I could be free and get out there, but I still had the network around me to show me how to do things.
Yeah.
And so being a consultant was still like, I guess it was like having a job in a business. It was when you look at Robert Kiyosaki and how he teaches you, the employees in one quadrant, and then you've got the self-employed person as in the next quadrant, and then you've sort of got the business owner that has more systems in place in that other quadrant, and then the true investor,
Yes.
is in that fourth quadrant. So I was sort of in that self-employed, but wanted to put systems in place so that I could have a business that was, one that I didn't have to be there all the time to run. I read that other book by Gerber, The E-Myth.
What a fantastic book. One of my favourite books.
Yeah. And so that sort of teaches you, he talks about, coming up with ways to have your business run so that you don't have to be there all the time to run it. And so all those things, learning, from Kiyosaki and Gerber, they all just made sense to me. And so, eventually I got out of my government job, leapt into the consulting. But a couple of years into the consulting, I was making more money in consulting than I was as a government employee. But I came across eBay, just having stuff lying around the house. So by about 2004, I decided I'm just going to sell all my stuff lying around the house, and it was all the VHS tapes. As
VHS
DVDs.
tapes.
Yeah. So as your DVDs became more popular in that sort of 2004, 2005 era, I just wanted to get rid of all the tapes lying around the house, around the TV, and sold them all on eBay. And people were buying them. People loved them, especially in the small country towns in Australia where they didn't have access to the big Video Easy chains and all that sort of thing. So there I was selling off all these cassette tapes, and so I think I got the bug there that, if I could do this, just selling junk around the house that I didn't want. Imagine if I got products that I wanted or that I thought other people really wanted, I could quite easily create an e-commerce business.
Was that literally the thought process behind it? Like, if I can sell these, then I should be able to sell other stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. If I can sort of stumble across this and do it without any real training and knowledge of e-commerce, imagine if I'd sort of did some training, and that's when I actually started to search online to try and find other people that were good at selling on eBay. And that's how I've always been. I've always tried to find other people that are successful, and just learn from them and try to grab hold of their tailcoat and success with someone else, even if I've got to pay them for coaching or whatnot.
Yeah, so, I'm the same. So you started with you started selling VHS cassettes. What was your kind of first serious thing that you were selling on the eBay then?
All right. Well, then I discovered this thing called dropshipping. So that was around that sort of 2005, 2006, and so then I needed to find a dropship product to sell, and I'd done a course that Matt and Amanda Clarkson. I think they still run it today.
They do, yeah.
The Bidding Buzz is what they run now. I went through that training, and it worked really well for me. I learned all about drop shipping. I did also learn about shipping products from China because that's what they were doing. But the easy way to get into selling on eBay was to find someone here in Australia that was already importing a product that people wanted, and did my research on this Terapeak website that has all the eBay data.
Yes.
I found that dog barking collars were the go, and there didn't seem to be too many sellers at the time selling these citronella bark collars that you put around the dog's neck.
Yeah.
And there was a little microphone, and every time the dog barked, the microphone would cause a little spray of citronella to come out. And they probably still have sold today, but back then there weren't that many sellers. I think there was only one or two. So I found the dropshipper based down in Melbourne who had the Australian import license for this particular brand of collar that was really popular. Just decided to fire off an email and ask if I could set up a dropship account. And I don't think this guy had any emails from other people, and he had the import license and was mainly selling them to vets and pet shops. And at the time, I think if you went into a pet shop, you could get one of these bark collars for like over $100, between $100 to $150.
$150, holy dooly!
And I think this guy was bringing them into Australia for probably $10 or US or less.
Oh my God, that's great.
But then by the time he would on-sell them at the wholesale price, your pet shops and vets, with all of their overheads, they're paying, rent and insurance and all that costs. You're renting a shop in Westfield or somewhere like that. By the time you add everything up, all the shipping and etc., you can understand why these collars are going for $100 or more dollars.
That's right.
But for me to be able to set up this dropship account was easy. He came back to me in an email and just said, how many will you be selling each day? And I had no idea, so I just made up a number. I said, I think I'll sell 6 a day. Half a dozen sounded like a good number. And I followed all the training that I had on how to set up an eBay listing and really good photographs. And I even found a video that showed how the dog collar worked, because I knew that video was something that would convert more.
Yes.
Used headlines and sub-headlines, all the good copywriting skills that you can learn that other eBay sellers just weren't doing. They were, just throwing anything up there, putting all the features, and it was really boring. Very, very little information up there. So I had a listing that just stood out. It had video, it had headlines, and so very, very quickly I was doing like 14 of these a day. Wow. And I got up to, that was just drop shipping. And the great thing about it was that I'd sell on eBay, and then I'd be able to sort of download everything into a spreadsheet and then email it back the next day, and they would ship it all out. And it was just so easy.
Gotta love
so
that.
I have the money coming into PayPal, and it was great just waking up in the morning and looking and seeing this, balance in your PayPal account, and then just hitting transfer every day. It was great.
And what sort of, you don't have to tell me, of course, what sort of income were you making at that point?
I got the dog collars up to, I got it as high as 10 grand a month. I couldn't crack 10 grand. That was in gross sales.
Yeah.
And my drop ship commission was about 20%.
Okay.
So there was $2,000. So we were talking like $500 a week extra. And all I was doing was sending an email off every day with, anywhere between 10 to 20 orders of dog collars.
That's fantastic.
And, I was amazed at the volume of sales every single day, of these bark collars.
So for 10 minutes work, you were making $500 a week?
Well, each day was probably about 10, 15 minutes to do the spreadsheet and send off the email.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, like an extra $500 a week just for doing that.
Mate, you must have been thinking, what the hell is this?
Well, dropshipping I thought was great, but then as I was getting more successful, and as eBay was, becoming more popular in that sort of period, from 2005 onwards, I got up as high as 10 grand a month in sales, but I just couldn't get any higher. And other people were coming in and copying, and I think other people found that drop shipper, and so he was quite happy to, let other eBay sellers drop ship.
Yeah.
Because I could see the same brand was being sold by different sellers. I still kept a little bit of an edge because the others were lazy. They weren't using the same copywriting and the same pictures and videos that I was using. And I was getting the training from Matt and Amanda. And, so then I thought, well, I just need to come up with other products. And that's when I looked at other pet products, and I discovered through Terapeak that rabbit hutches were another big thing that were really popular. and that if you went down to the local pet shop, a rabbit hutch could be $300, $400, $500.
Absolutely.
For a sort of about a 6 foot tall rabbit hutch, which was a 2-story one. I went through Alibaba and I looked for the pictures on Alibaba of the one that was the number one seller. Because Terapeak lets you search through all the data and find which one was the number one seller. And so I had the picture there, and I just went through every Alibaba listing until I found the exact picture on Alibaba. So, well, that's got to be the supplier. So I sent them off an email and said, I want to buy, from you. What's the price? And just bought a little order to start with and started selling.
On eBay, selling on eBay again.
Yeah, on eBay.
Yeah.
I wasn't drop shipping there. I was bringing them in, but I couldn't bring them to my house here in Canberra because they were massive. These rabbit hutches. They came in 2 boxes that weighed 40 kilos each.
Oh my God.
That's how massive these rabbit hutches were. But the profit on them was sensational. So to bring them in was more than I was making a higher profit than drop shipping.
Yeah.
It was about 65, sort of in that 50 to 65 US dollars to buy them and ship them into Australia.
So landed in Oz, $65.
Yeah. Something like that, yeah, with the shipping and the GST and everything added on. It was around that $65 price range. And I'd sell them, so Aussie dollars back then was probably around the 75.
Yeah.
But I was selling them for around 120.
Awesome.
On eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the customer was paying for the shipping. So the shipping could be anything from $15 to $50, depending on where that person lived.
Yeah.
And of course, I couldn't ship from my house. So I managed to find a warehouse in Sydney in Wetherill Park that was doing it. And they were really easy to work with. So similar to the drop shipper, instead of sending a spreadsheet to the drop shipper for the rabbit hutches, so I had 2 spreadsheets going, one to the drop shipper for the bar collar, and then I'd send another another spreadsheet to the warehouse, and then they would work out in their system and pull the massive boxes off the shelf, and then they had to deal with TNT or DHL or whatever the couriers were, and so whatever the cost was, the eBay customer would pay, and so I was getting about probably $50 Aussie profit on each rabbit hutch that I'd sell.
That's great.
And I was selling 2 of those a day.
Excellent.
I'd do a 99-cent auction. I'd do a 99-cent auction, and it would get up to like $120.
Yeah.
To a 99-cent auction. No one else was doing 99-cent auctions because they didn't believe that people would bid it up enough. But
sure.
In that last 20 minutes, it'd go from $60 to about $120, $130 in the last like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was my next progression.
So your investment in that was, say, $75 Aussie landed. You're selling them at 120 on average.
Yeah, up to as high as 150, 160 because I do auctions.
Yeah.
Sometimes the auctions would go crazy because I only did 1 auction a day, and then I'd have one at a fixed price of like $147 or something like that.
Gotcha.
Which then they had to pay shipping on top of that.
Yeah. So what, $100 a day, something like that? Profit for yourself?
Yeah, at least $100 a day profit.
That's great. Good for you. That's awesome.
But then I even increased it. I remember at one stage there, I was bringing in a container a month, a whole container of rabbit hutches because they were so big. I think you could only fit something like, I think there was like 80 rabbit hutches could fit into a 20-foot container because they were that big. Jesus. So then this warehouse at Wetherill Park was getting a whole container come in.
Oh my God.
And they would charge $500 to unpack the container.
Yes.
And then put it on the shelves, and then away I go. But I soon learnt, again, I was learning all along that just by doing drop shipping, you get other people that it's easy for them to copy off you.
Yeah.
I wasn't building a brand.
Yeah.
I was just learning e-commerce. And again, even with bringing in the rabbit hutches, I wasn't private labeling. I wasn't putting my own barcode or anything like we do on Amazon or any branding on it. It was just a vanilla packaging that was coming in.
Sure.
And I didn't really have a brand on eBay. It was just whatever my seller ID was. I think my seller ID at the time was like how to stop barking. and that was for both of those pet products.
Yeah.
I did another product. I found another pet play pen. It was sort of like the play pen that you put kids into to play around in, and this was for dogs. And I was bringing that in, and I was making about $30 a day profit on that. So I was soon building up my daily profit, and then I even
that sounds like you kind of got the idea that the more products you add into the mix, the more profit you're going to make.
Pretty much, yeah. But then, of course, you've got to when you're new and you're starting off in business like I was, you have to try and figure out your cash flows and work out if you're tying up a whole bunch of money buying a container of rabbit hutches, how much money have you got left then to buy another shipment of whatever other products you want to add to your range, and then if you have any delays, if you've paid 30% or 50% of your money and you're waiting for that to be manufactured, and that's where I ran into difficulties in my early days. That eBay, I found it was easy for people to come in and just copy off you and just compete with you in an easy way.
Yes.
Because I wasn't branding, I wasn't sort of doing anything apart from trying to compete on price. And I'd try and add some bonuses in there. Like I did have some ebooks and things like that I'd throw in to help people that wanted to train their dog, or to other things that I threw in with the rabbit hutch. Can't remember what the bonus. I don't remember what the bonus was with the rabbit hutch. I think it was might have been just a phone call to follow up with me to if there were any problems or something like that. I don't think I really had any real great bonuses that I could differentiate myself with.
Sure.
On those.
Sure. So what was next then? So you're selling these things on eBay. What was your kind of the next evolution in that then?
Well, I did start sending the lightweight playpen over to the US. I found a warehouse in the US because I just couldn't get Amazon FBA to work in. So we're there in probably like 2006 to 2008.
Yeah.
In that time there, I'm trying to get a warehouse in the US, and I knew about Amazon FBA. I had my own. I created an Amazon account, and I think I even created the FBA account, and it was a free account, so I didn't have to pay the monthly fee, because I wanted to figure out how to do it. Like I just couldn't understand how the barcodes worked. I don't think I couldn't even get a bank account linked in Australia like you can now.
Yes.
I used to travel across to the US every now and again, so I had a US bank account, so I could get paid into a US bank account.
And that was back when you actually needed a US bank account to sell on Amazon, eh?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just hard. Like then it wasn't the way it is now. So I just couldn't crack the code with Amazon FBA. So I actually used a third-party logistics warehouse in Texas somewhere, and I would ship my product from China straight to this warehouse in Texas. But they were hopeless. I found they didn't have the same systems in place that Amazon do now.
Yeah.
I remember one shipment that I sent in there. It'd be a carton with like 10 of this product in it. Well, they'd scan the barcode, and that was one product. So there was a time there where I was selling one product, but they would send out a box of 10 to the customer. And, yeah. So I had all sorts of problems then, with that warehouse, and eventually I left them. So for me in those early stages, it was just a matter of trialing and testing all different things and seeing what worked. And when I came across things that didn't work, well, I just soon learned, okay, I've got to try and find something better than that.
Yes.
And I think in those early days, I was there when e-commerce was still, there weren't so many people doing it. So it wasn't until 2013 when I actually set up my Amazon FBA account. That was when Amazing Selling Machine came along.
I remember that. Yeah, ASL.
Big high ticket course, and I said to my wife, I said, with my history on eBay, you know that I can do this e-commerce stuff. Are you okay with me pulling the credit card out and swiping it through for this big investment for the amazing selling machine, because it was about $3,000 US.
Yeah.
And she gave me the okay. She said, "Yeah, I trust you. I think you'll be able to make a fist of this." So I did that, and it was just as well that I did, because within the first couple of weeks, I was able to then set up my account on Amazon. Everything was just paint by numbers. Follow this video, do this, similar to your course.
Great.
Going back to 2013. There was nothing around showing you step by step, do this to set up as a foreign seller.
That's right.
On the Amazon.com site. So I was quite happy to, way back then in 2013 to make that investment so I could get up and running as fast as I could and get some product there into Amazon quickly.
And what was your first product? What did you decide on?
Yeah, well, the first product I decided on, I got some samples sent from China. And it was going to be a shoe rack. So when you go to someone's house and you take your shoes off, you put them on a rack out in front of their house. Well, Asian culture, you go to Japan, you go to a lot of places in Asia, you've got to put your shoes, and that's something that we have in our house. So I thought, yeah, there must be a bit of a demand for that, and I did the research, and there was a bit of a demand. The problem was the samples that I got sent to me. I did the numbers, and they were going to be so heavy that I ended up not going through with it. I'm glad I didn't, because I would have had to spend too much money.
Sure.
So then I went back and looked at the training, and the recommendations always find something that's less than about £1, something small, lightweight, that you can ship really easily. So back then was when in 2013 the iPhones and the iPads were just starting to become popular. People were buying iPhones and iPads. And you needed 2 USB ports to charge up both at the same time. And because Apple weren't doing that, they were relying on third-party vendors to come up with those products. There weren't that many on Amazon at the time. So I did my research, and I decided to go to AliExpress to make things even quicker. I knew I wouldn't get the best price on AliExpress, but I just wanted to get the product in there as quick as I could and test it and see if it was a viable product. So, following the training, I sent an email out to a dozen different AliExpress suppliers that were selling dual USB chargers. And there was only one guy that came back to me that said he would put the sticker on the box with my logo.
Yes.
He would put the Amazon, barcode and everything on there. And this guy was just so helpful, whereas all the others were like, "Oh no, it's going to cost you extra," or they wouldn't respond back, or it was all too hard. So that guy, Andy is his English name. He can't speak English, but we can still communicate on via email.
Yes.
He was selling them for $4.51 on AliExpress, and that was delivered to the US. So I bought 100 of them, so $451 US.
$451 US, yeah.
My initial investment to get started on Amazon FBA. Shipped those off. He shipped them all up, so they were all FBA compliant, and I shipped direct into FBA. Bang, they hit FBA. Within 8 days, 10 days, because they went that. They went with FedEx through the quicker air freight channel. And I remember sitting there with my wife, looking at the screen. And the very first day when they went live, we sold 6.
On the first day, did you? That's great. You
Wow.
must have been like, wow.
Yep, we were so happy.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I showed my wife, and again looking early hours of the morning because it's US time, another 8 were sold. Thinking, wow, that's 14 in 2 days. This test is looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And then up the third day, sold about another half a dozen. So then I just got straight back onto AliExpress to Andy and said, "Mate, send us 200 this time." So there was another $902 investment or whatever it is for the next 200. And then they just kept selling every day. I was doing 10 a day, 15 a day. They were just so popular. There was hardly any competition in 2013.
That's great.
This was 1st of June 2013 is when I started selling. So I got up to 10K per month, I reckon, by about 6 weeks.
Wow.
So that's how quick it was.
Yeah.
I'm sending Andy orders for 500 at a time. And then when it got to the stage where I said, look, I'm going to have to get 1,000. So I emailed Andy. I said, mate, can you do me a better price on 1,000 of them? And he just couldn't. He couldn't drop his price. 451 was the only way he was making any money. And I just said, okay, that's fine. I looked on the bottom of the box and I found the code on the bottom of the box, and I typed it into Google, and I found the factory in Alibaba that was made. And I just said to Andy, look, mate, I'm going to have to go straight to the factory to get a better price. So I ordered 1,000 from the factory, and then I ordered 2,000 because the sales just kept growing. I got up to 30,000 a month.
So your initial $451 investment, you got it up to $30,000 a month.
Yep.
Well done, mate. That's brilliant.
So that was just incredible growth up to like October of that year. So June, July, August, September, October. So within 4 months, it was up to 30,000. So got my investment back in the training course. Was quite happy with that.
No doubt.
And I think really that was my goal at the time. You know, back in 2013, it was to learn and be at the forefront. I guess I could see that e-commerce was starting to take off.
Yeah.
And I think if like what's happening here in Australia, if you can get into a market early, you're at an advantage. Having said that, though, anyone new selling on Amazon.com in the US today, I still think the market just keeps growing in the US. It keeps. I think it's doubled. I think it's doubled since 2013 when I started. So
yeah,
there's even an opportunity. And for me, it was all about building a brand. And I guess the reason I'm happy now to talk about the products that I was selling back in those days is I'm not in those markets anymore. And I guess what I've learned since 2013 is that build a brand.
Yes.
Keep an eye on your business. Learn what the market wants and doesn't like anymore. And also what works well for your business. So for me, part of my learning has been to try and figure out how is it that I can improve the way that I get product from China into the US or product from China into Australia or any other market that I want to sell on. So, I've always tried to figure out what's not working in my business and then make a concerted effort to try and learn a bit more about that and I guess be on top of it, and then I can sort of take my business to the next level.
And with that in mind then, what do you see? I mean, you mentioned already that you believe that Australia, with Amazon opening, that's going to be a big opportunity. What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking to themselves, I'd like to get a part of that. I'd like to be involved in that e-commerce gold rush that's going to happen in Australia?
Get in as quick as you can and just get a product up and running as quick as you can, because you can do it quite inexpensively. And even if your first product doesn't have to be a home run, it doesn't have to be a lucky one like me that I hit out of the park with 30,000 a month. Even if you make a couple of $100, $1,000 here and there, you're going to learn the process. And I think that's the important thing. Learn how it all works so that you feel more confident. And it's the education of actually doing it. It's good to watch videos. It's good to learn from other people, but there's a certain point where you've actually got to do stuff. I mean, you can have lots and lots of courses, but if all you're doing is watching videos and reading things but not implementing anything, you're not going to learn and you're not going to make any money.
That's right. You'll learn a lot faster from actually applying the information.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to make a few mistakes. I mean, if you set yourself a goal, set yourself a goal of how much you want to make, but you can quite easily limit your risk by buying a small quantity and testing it, and then if that works, you can scale it.
And talking about setting goal, then what are your goals for your e-commerce business? You don't mention your products or your categories, but I'm just interested.
Yeah, look, I'm still sort of diversified in a lot of different areas. So the e-commerce Amazon business is really just the tip of the spear, so to speak. I mean, it's a great way to get into e-commerce, Amazon.com, but I've sort of diversified now with a Shopify site.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you create a brand, and I really want to create a brand that then I'm quite happy to advertise out there, because it'll be a brand I haven't quite got my brand big enough yet, which is why I want to keep it under wraps, because otherwise,
absolutely,
anyone can just and say, well, that's a great product, and I'll just copy that. But I think you want to sort of get your brand to the point where other people notice it and are copying off it because you're so successful, and then that's what I want to do, be able to sell the brand. So I'm systemizing everything so that if someone came along and wrote out a big enough check, then I could basically hand over the business to them.
Good for you.
And it runs just with anyone else turning the key, so to speak, the old turnkey business. That's what I'm big on now, systemizing everything. So using like documenting everything, writing SOPs and things like that. So I don't have
SOPs,
to be there.
for those people that don't know, SOP is
Standard operating procedure, which learnt in the government, the military. You learn all those sort of standard operating procedures. So when you're under fire and lots of stuff's happening, you can just pull out the old checklist and go, okay, I've got to do that. I've got to do that.
good.
I've got to do. Yeah.
Which kind of takes us back to that whole thing from the beginning of this great interview. All about Gerber and the E-Myth, because Gerber's obviously huge on building those SOPs as well, and that concept of having an operating system for the business, like a franchise in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've gone to a whole new level. I mean, you've just been on an incredible journey. It's been fantastic to hear about what you've been doing and to get a greater understanding of some of your own, not only successes, but the kind of journey that led to that as well. And the real thing that I think I've taken from this interview is that you are an action taker. Like, you'll just get off your arse, give it a shot, but you're also not afraid to ask for help as well and to learn from people who are doing it as well, which I think is a fantastic ability to have that certainly has clearly given you a unique edge in business.
Yeah, well, I think when people watch your videos, you've then got to take action straight afterwards. Otherwise, there's no point in investing in any training course.
Yeah.
Some people like to sit there and watch the videos from start to finish and then go, okay, now I've watched the whole training course, I'll take some action now. But I think you've really got to take little baby steps along the way. And I try, and I'm still today watching, I'm involved in coaching and watching all sorts of videos. And I try and make sure that if I watch a video that goes for half an hour, then straight after that I spend another half an hour actually implementing what I just learned.
Very good. Very good.
Otherwise, you're just not going to learn.
Yeah.
And you get what you've been watching.
It's mental masturbation after a while, isn't it, if you're just doing that? And okay, so just before we kind of finish things up here, is there anything else that you feel is relevant to somebody who's kind of listening to this, somebody who's perhaps at the beginning of their journey or other stages? Anything else you kind of want to share?
I think you've just got to back yourself and not think that you have to be some special person to be an entrepreneur and to build a business. If you want to do it, you're just going to have to trust in yourself, believe in yourself, and surround yourself with other people that are doing it. And the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs is a great place to be with other Aussies that are doing it. So just don't feel like you have to be super smart to start up an e-commerce business, because I tell you, I'm not that smart. I've made plenty of mistakes. You just got to be prepared to have a go and learn from your mistakes and ask for help from other people.
Geoff, that's been fantastic. Mate, I want to say a huge thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and to allow us into your e-commerce business and to your business in general, and to share some fantastic tips and some inspiring stories as well. And thanks for being a part of the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs too, mate, and for sharing your wisdom within our group as well, mate. That's really, really appreciated. Thanks for everything.
My pleasure. Thanks, Neil.
Mate, my pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us today, mate. Take care.
See ya.